Hey, I'm Stephanie Todd, the host of ERCx Chats. Excited about the session we're about to have today. Here with Matt Watkinson, best-selling author of The 10 Principles Behind Great Customer Experiences, now The Grid.
The great thing is you don't need to predict the future if you're the one who's actually making it.
So what out of your career and the trajectory surprised you the most from where you were, where you started and where you are now, where you're headed?
Yeah, I think the thing that surprised me most about my own career trajectory, and actually those of most people I know, is how much they've been dominated by serendipitous events and chance encounters instead of kind of contrivance and strategizing and planning. I think most of the most influential or important moments in my career, like mentors I've met, jobs I've been offered, or even actually how my kind of first book came about, all had these kind of serendipitous encounters. Like you meet somebody who knows somebody, or you're in the right place at the right time. And that's actually how it kind of happens in the real world. You can have a rough plan, but you know, it's you meet a certain person. The same is true in your personal life, like how you end up meeting your best friend or your spouse or whatever. It tends to be just kind of serendipity and that kind of thing. So I guess my taking from that, or my lesson from that, and this is also something that's written about in this third book, is that you need to just be open to opportunity, and you need to think about building good, high quality relationships and kind of getting yourself out there, because it expands this kind of, I can't remember who came up with the term, but it's a brilliant term, this luck surface area, that means that more kind of opportunities come your way. And I think that we tend to get very focused on planning and strategizing and trying to have this kind of master plan vision for the future of where our career is going to go. But actually, most of what affects our success in the long term comes down to these serendipitous encounters. So we should be open to new opportunities. We should be willing to say yes. We should be willing to try new things. We should be willing to build new relationships. We should be willing to meet people, and then more opportunities are likely to come my way. And that's certainly how my career has played out. It's been more luck than judgment, probably, but you can do things to influence how lucky you get by being open to kind of serendipity or
so like natural curiosity about others and lifelong learning, constantly learning. I know you've said before, like you don't necessarily believe in experts because that assumes you know everything versus constantly learning and growing.
Well, I don't necessarily believe that I'm an expert. I think that's a little bit different. I mean, I think I've always kind of aspired to be a student of the disciplines and things that I'm interested in. And the approach that's dominated my own thinking in the fields that I work in, whether it's been customer experience or design, has been really to try and look outside of the discipline at what ideas we might kind of lift and shift from other disciplines that can be applied to us. So in the first book, I stole a load of ideas from how method actors get into character and are able to embody those people so comprehensively and really understand them. Like I literally stole a load of techniques from
a completely different industry.
From a completely different category, this kind of Stanislavski acting approach, and was like, oh, they seem really good at getting to understand people. What can they teach us about this? I liberated some ideas from philosophy, from sociology and anthropology and those kinds of things, rather than just sticking to the
blueprint that's similar to almost everyone else.
Yeah, and in fact, this book, the Grid, the second book, was inspired by having knee surgery. I had surgery on both my knees, and it didn't fix the problem with my knees, and I went to see all sorts of other specialists, osteopaths, physical therapists, that kind of thing. And nothing really worked to fix them because everyone was looking at the knee without thinking of where the problem whether the problem might have come from elsewhere. And it was only when I met this really smart lady who was explaining to me how, like, the body is an interconnected whole. So if you have knee problems, it's typically caused by some muscle imbalance elsewhere, like maybe in your hips or whatever. And, with physical pain, it tends to be that the victim screams, not the perpetrator, if you see what I mean, was the phrase that she used. And she showed me, I was asking her questions about it, and she pointed me in the direction of this book called Anatomy Trains, which explains how, the body works as this, like the muscular system works as this interconnected whole. And I was thinking, well, a business is like that too. It's like an interconnected system. So how could I take this idea from this anatomy book and apply that to the world of business? And that's actually what led me to write this second book. So that was inspired by that, a totally different thing. So my approach has always been to try and look out of whatever discipline I'm in and just be curious about the kind of world around me and see what ideas I might be able to repurpose. And I think that's where a lot of breakthroughs come from, is just, in many ways, I suppose that's kind of the essence of creativity, is connecting dots in new ways, or looking for new things, new ideas. So that's how I've tried to approach everything, is like by way of analogy or just following up on things in general that I'm interested in life, and then seeing what the lesson might be for other areas.
It's like creative concepts of curiosity across it all. Yeah. We have some people on our team who are completely different industries. And what you generally find in like the business process, like BPO industry, is that everyone comes from one to the next.
Yeah.
And it's the same idea, is kind of being shifted around. And while you need some of that, it's also infusing other aspects of it. So I have people who came from consumer products or babies, like, it's totally different other worlds that in the consumer field, that brings a totally different picture or viewpoint on it. Or, ticketing operations within universities, things where it's just like, it, I think, opens our perspective and minds instead of just focusing on what I've known. It's continuing to look at, like, we go across a bunch of industries and a bunch of different clients, but when you kind of break it down, it's a lot of the same concepts from the start for experience, but having people who bring different viewpoints and perspectives that other people in the field don't normally, think about or, aren't curious about. I think it really opens it up, just kind of like the method acting.
Thinking about my first book, I went to a friend of mine's for lunch. He was a soldier, and he'd just come back from Afghanistan, and he was back at his family home for some kind of R&R. And so I went over there for lunch, and his younger brother was there, who was quite a few years younger than him. And we were having a cup of tea in the kitchen, and we ended up arguing over some weird, obscure psychological thing. And I ended up saying to him, well, look, I've been looking into this because I want to write a book on this stuff. He's like, oh, really? I'm doing an internship at one of London's top literary agents. I was like, oh. He's like, do you have a proposal for your book? I was like, no, not yet. And he's like, well, if you can get one to me, I'll put it on the agent's desk, which is like a 1 in 1,000 chance that he would actually like read it if I'd submitted it cold versus actually having it put on his desk. I was like, well, I can write one for you. And he's like, well, you better hurry up, so I've only got a week left of my internship. He was doing like work experience in there. So I went straight after lunch and I started writing, and I churned out this proposal for this book, and it was total garbage. I mean, it was terribly written. The ideas were just a kind of jumbled mess. And looking back on it, it was kind of an abomination, actually, what I wrote. I mean, the proposal was complete crap. But true to his word, John did put it on the guy's desk. He did read it. He called me in for a meeting. He gave me a load of feedback on how to improve it and shape it. And he actually became the agent that represented this book and the book after. And if it hadn't been for going to that lunch and my mate's little brother being there and us having that particular conversation, I would probably never have become an author. I'd never have got my first book published, probably. Or if I did, it would probably have been just as bad as the proposal, like just unreadable nonsense. And certainly would not have done the second one, third one, wouldn't have had the kind of career that I've had, wouldn't be sitting here with you now. Literally would, you know, I mean, our paths would never have crossed. We probably wouldn't have been in the same industry. Probably wouldn't have ended up moving to LA either, because I wouldn't have been able to take my work with me in the same way. So it's just amazing to look back on these events and realize that actually what really shapes your career and your fortunes and your progression in that regard is these little serendipitous encounters. So you need to be looking for them everywhere, and you need to be open to opportunity. And I think you also need to be the kind of person who's willing to go first. I find that in life, almost everybody is waiting. They want to do things, they want to get involved, they want someone else to go first. They want someone else to suggest it, and then they can go, yeah, sure. I've realized that, you know, if I just think about the number of relationships that are really meaningful in my life that I wouldn't have if I hadn't been the person who'd said, let's get coffee, or let's get together, or let's talk about this. And it just like was waiting around like a lettuce for other people to seize the initiative. Yeah, it would be a disaster. So, yeah, those were like major learnings for me. It's often serendipitous encounters, and it's often just being willing, open to opportunity, and being willing to be the type of person who seizes the initiative and says, like, is willing to go first, that determines how far you can go in life, I think.
Do you still talk to John? Does John know the impact you made?
Yeah, so John, I mean, we've been family friends. I've been friends with that family for I'm trying to think, over half a lifetime. I mean, I went to school with his older brother, so I've known him since I was 15, which was obviously not that long ago.
5 years ago.
Yeah, 10 years ago. So, yeah, I mean, he does. Yeah, he's aware of it. He's credited in the first book really for making it happen. But you know, it would just be very easy to tell a different story about it, which would be, well, you know, I did the research, I had my nose to the grindstone, I wrote it, you know, blah blah blah. And that's the story that people like to tell about their successes. But ultimately, the real story was, or at least a huge part of the story was, I was lucky that I was in the right place at the right time, but also that I was, I guess, aware that I was in luck and tried to capitalize on it. I wasn't like, oh, no, I'll worry about the proposal later. I literally phoned my client and said, I can't come in for a week, I've got to do something. And I just blitzed through it because, you know, as the saying goes, you don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Like, I saw the opportunity for what it was, and I got on with it.
And that can be spread across anything. So like even coming back to customer experience, being able to fail, being able to try and do something first because it's right for your customer versus what everyone is doing just to do a chatbot because there's chatbots. Like, but it can go across anything. Yeah,
I think it's a mindset really. It's a mindset that says, I'm open to opportunity, I'm willing to create opportunity, and I'm willing to try stuff out, and I'm willing to initiate things. I'm willing to be the person who says, here's what I want to do. And
I think for me, it's also the foundation of it all, of the natural curiosity of others and being genuine about wanting to know more about other people and learn from them. You know, growing up in North Dakota, I talk to everyone, strangers, anyone. And then people are always like, how do you know everyone? I'm just like, doesn't matter who you are. I'll sit and have a 4-hour conversation with someone who I have no idea who they are, what they do. But by the end of it, you should hopefully know a lot more about them or learn something from them too.
Yeah, for sure. Like I think, I don't remember the exact expression, but like most of being a great conversationalist is being a good listener, not being a good talker.
There's a book that our team has read too called Yes and, from the creators of Second City, which is really just about like expanding on ideas. So giving that thought process where people can say, oh, you have an idea you're sharing with me, and I say yes and whatever versus no or no but, kind of stopping the process of thought. So that was another one where we kind of took that away. So do you want to leave our guests with anything else that are listening in terms of customer experience, what they should know, any tips or kind of no BS things you'd like to share?
Oh wow! Well, I mean, we've already covered so much. I am a big advocate, obviously, of using psychological principles when you're trying to go about systematically improving things. But I think when it comes down to kind of one-on-one interactions or dealing with people or individuals or just interacting with them, really the ultimate piece of advice is to try and just move away from like service provider, client, or business customer, and think in terms of host and guest. Like if you just put yourself in the position of if you were hosting this person and they were your guest, what would you do? And how you would do that in your personal life. You instinctively do all the things that we're trying to get people to do in these interactions. Think about what a great host does. Like they make people feel welcomed. They make people feel valued. They attend to their individual needs. You know, all of those kinds of things. They're generous with their time. They're patient. They want to make sure that people have a great time. They might even purposefully connect them with other people whose company that they might enjoy. They create a nice environment that people want to be in, right? So in many ways, like the simplest piece of advice that you could give anyone who's trying to improve customer experience when it's like interpersonal is this idea that I picked up from my mentor and co-author of this third book of like, just be a host in life. And that's like a universal life thing. Everyone who I know who is the most successful people in life, they all are hosts rather than guests. They're always looking for ways to contribute or create value for other people. They're not going into everything going, well, what's in this for me? Or like, how can I get something out of this? Or what's the quid pro quo deal that we're going to do here?
Yeah.
It's like, I am a host in life and everyone who comes into my sphere is a guest. And I create value for other people as much as I can. And you know what goes around tends to come around. And I see that host mentality in almost all successful people I know, but not just successful people, but people who are successful and actually happy. It's like they're doing things for other people. So yeah, it's a general mindset thing that transcends customer experience, but it's very applicable to that discipline.
Well, thank you. You shared a lot. I think our learners who are listening have probably learned or taken your advice, and hopefully will take that back and continue to improve upon their personal and professional lives.
Well, yeah, thank you. It's been great.